Meeting of the Hubbardston Planning Board. Planning Board meetings are broadcast live and digitally recorded. The meeting is being held. What's that going on? Both in person and virtually through Zoom pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, which allows public meetings to be conducted remotely so that board and committee members, as well as members of the public, can participate remotely. So, looking around the table, recognizing that we have a full house from the planning board, so we certainly have a quorum. Joining us tonight are some members from the Board of Health. Although the Board of Health does not have a quorum, they will be attending the meeting as our distinguished guests. So moving forward on the agenda, we have a discussion of the odor complaints that are carried over from our meeting a month ago. So just as a procedural history on this, written into the special permits for the permit holders, were that if we received 3 credible complaints, we would hold a public meeting to discuss those complaints and to discuss any steps that the permit holders could take in order to help mitigate the odor. Pretty nondescript language in that, but anyways, so moving forward, let's call first, since we have Bowie here, let's Paper Crane. So Paper Crane did submit a letter to us, and did attend our last meeting. And at our last meeting, where we heard significant public comment, Paper Crane, through Bowie's, made several great suggestions on things they're gonna be doing for crop planting and such, that they believe will help mitigate some of the odors. And they took some of those things and put them into a letter and submitted them to us and to the planning board. They've been available to the planning board through the Google Drive, and I believe they were distributed by email to the Board of Health. So with that said, Mr. Bowie, can, it's the second of a long day. Mr. Berthold, can you please just walk us through, and I know you already did at the previous meeting, just walk us through some of the changes from last season to this season, because as you said, we're all learning our way through this for the first time, so what's been the learning experience?
Sure. Well, I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but I'm pretty. Thanks. So I simply outlined the steps that I spoke about at the last meeting. We're planting less plants. We have staged them in smaller groupings so we can handle them quicker and basically try and get them out of the field as quickly as possible. That's the goal. My green building, the stove shop, that's cooled now as AC, so we're gonna be able to actually just get more into the build. You know, we have another 1,800 square feet to use, which is significant amount of plants. It's a good chunk. So that, and those are. I mean, what we're intending to do is hoping to weather cooperating to just work much more efficiently to not get behind in harvesting when the plants are mature. That was like when Katie was sort of waiting while her daughter was mowing across the street last meeting. She was like that heavy smell. That's like I explained, we kind of got behind in our, we had too many plants ready that we couldn't process. And then a lot of them, instead of being processed, went on the compost pile. Continued to smell. So just, basically improved standard operating procedures and hoping, like I said, the weather will cooperate and we can get ahead of each phase of harvesting instead of getting behind. And I think that will make a significant difference.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to take some questions from the board and from any of our distinguished guests. I did want to go with the first one myself. Learning about some of the, I guess you would call it wastage that had happened last year. it makes sense that that could have caused a particularly odoriferous year. I think where we need to get better as the town, and where I think you can help yourself and help us, is I don't think any of us were aware that you were having some of those issues. So we're ultimately held accountable to the public, and when there is a problem, the public complains and expresses what's going on to us. So being able to have a franker assessment of what's going on and be able to help people have reasonable expectations. So knowing if there was a problem and being able to talk about that, I think would help everybody have more reasonable expectations. Because some of what I got concerned about it was, well, is this typical? How long will this go? There are obviously gonna be some odors that come from an outdoor grow facility, but how can we clearly communicate what the expectations are gonna be? Because I think it's just gonna make everybody easier, or rather make everybody feel more at ease when they have an expectation of what's gonna happen.
Sure, makes
that-
sense.
That I think is, so if there's another problem that comes up like that, please reach out to some of the professionals we have in the office, because they're gonna be the ones that take any phone calls.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, just exactly like, hey guys, here's what's going on, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
cause we
would
would
help.
love to be able to send out, you know, and let folks know that harvesting is starting today, expected so many days. And then that would help alleviate
Sure.
concerns.
Yeah, makes sense.
Make everybody happier, yeah.
Yeah, I know when we had discussed this at one point, there were some security concerns about that, so we can work that out between our respective offices and our respective staff.
Mhm.
Because I know you had some discomfort about just publishing when the harvest period was gonna be for security reasons.
Yeah, of course.
But,
Right.
but I think if we were to have that information at least available for people who made specific questions,
So you know
because.
the calls will be coming.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and-
exactly, no, exactly, right.
We'll man the
Yeah.
phones.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody's gonna be like, you know what, I'm planning the heist of the year, I'm gonna go check with the planning board to see if we can.
Yeah, exactly.
I would just like to say that we're, you know, the police do us a great service and do park their car right outside at that telephone pole, outside of our grow all the time. And we really appreciate that. It's, you know, we'd rather have them there than anybody else, and that's kind of a spot where they rest, so, I feel like that also helps with just deterring anything. It's often there, or right across at the, buses as well. You know.
Now they watch the traffic sitting there too, so.
Yeah.
Works out well.
Yeah.
Right, so additional questions or comments from the board or from our distinguished guests?
Quick comment. I think it's a two-way street, and I think to voice and the operation that is taking place there, their benefit is we per se, on our side from the planning board, I don't believe we received the complaints ourselves. Complaints really went apparently to the health department. I think it would make a lot more sense is that as you perceive that the number of complaints are increasing, that be communicated
Yeah.
to the operations in question as soon as possible, so that they can either figure out if it truly is them and potentially address it in a manner that is more conducive to potentially mitigating the impact of those odors.
Yes, I think that going forward, that is part of how we're gonna handle it better this
Correct.
year.
And I think we also have to be very pragmatic about the sensitivity of individuals
Mm-hmm.
towards the odor. I'm thinking that you yourself might be a reasonable person, you yourself might be a reasonable person, and if perchance you go out there and you don't smell anything, but people are complaining, we gotta be reasonable about why these complaints might be coming in, because there could be also individuals who can be complainers for the sake of complaining.
I
versus
understand.
the reality of true smell and odor
Right.
emerging. I did have one question for Lori. My understanding is yes, the compost pile probably was not the best situation. During the growth period, there is, my understanding, there is a very particular period where the scent starts.
Mhm.
As soon as that scent starts, is that when it's ready to be harvested, or is it still, do you still have to leave it in the field in order to reach its full maturity?
Great question. It's about 3 to 4 weeks further from when the smell becomes noticeable to when it becomes heavy.
Okay, and it's
Yeah.
when it's heavy, that's when you really want to harvest it?
No, actually, just a little before.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little before.
So understanding that sensitivity is certainly something that you may want to take into consideration.
Yeah. Oh, and that's also just built into sort of when I say improved SOPs is being actually, we have every plant to be harvested on the schedule now.
Mhm.
If we can adhere to that, then things aren't in the field really over-ripening,
Yeah.
basically. So-
I will commend you to the plan. I mean, the fact that you're putting your crop into different cycles, you're working through something that sounds and seems reasonable. And so from that perspective, I commend that.
And it's also it's even more reasonable when you see it. So that's why I would love anybody just to come by and check it out, because when you can actually see like, oh, this makes much more sense. It's Katie and Whitney from the EDC came by, and it's to stand there and say, we were looking at all this ready at once, that last year, and now it's gonna be much smaller groupings, basically. If that makes any sense, so.
Well, I hope going forward, we can all kinda just settle down and let this operate out. It's a new field for everybody here,
Yeah.
and emotions get high with a lot of folks, and maybe this will help kinda settle that all down, and we can make it work for everybody. And the biggest thing, I think, is communication.
Absolutely.
And if we
Yeah.
get complaints, we probably should reverse that to let him know that we're getting complaints.
That is what we're planning to do this year.
Oh, good.
So that you
Great.
know when
Sure.
they come in, okay?
Yep, that's great.
Right.
I have one question. When you go to compost the dead plants,
Mhm.
do you have a procedure for covering the material with a layer of dirt so that the odor dissipates quickly?
So we
How
cover.
can you do that?
So we actually cover, when we have to put a heavy layer on our compost pile,
Yes.
we actually get large 2,000-pound totes of organic barley hulls,
Okay.
which is
Yes.
it's basically a super absorber.
Yes, it is.
So
Barley absorbs a lot of odor.
So,
yes.
yeah, we get these big, 2,000-3,000-pound totes of barley hulls, and we layer our compost with
Mhm.
those.
Okay.
We actually could not get them last year. It's also,
Okay.
we just couldn't get them. We only get organic ones from upstate New York, and we couldn't get those in particularly. And we
Mhm.
won't put anything else on our compost pile if it's not from a certified organic farm. So, but they're there now, and they do work. If you put up 3-4 inches of those hulls, and they form almost like a shell.
Correct.
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
Yeah, of course.
completely.
You of all people know.
That's
right?
why I was asking
Yeah.
how you were gonna manage it.
Mhm.
That should probably help a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you can't get that, is there an alternative, just organic hay or something to
Hay is
use?
okay. Hay, rice hulls are very cheap, and then we also can get coffee chaff from Equal Exchange, which works
Mhm.
great too, and actually does a very good job of composting and masking the smell. So, all of that.
So you have more than one alternative?
We do, yeah.
That's good.
Yep. Yep.
That certainly will help a lot,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yes.
Alright,
Yeah.
any further questions from the board? Alright, well, thank you very much for providing us with that information.
No problem.
I don't believe that there's anything to have any kind of vote on here, so I think we're all just going to
Move on.
continue on with the experiment, see how it goes.
Great, and I'll definitely be in touch, let you guys know what's coming,
Thanks.
when things are happening.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
I actually have a question for the board, not for him.
Sure.
So now that they're gonna do smaller plantings over a longer period, is the neighborhood gonna have the smell of marijuana ripening, getting dank, ripening, getting dank, ripening, getting dank for 8 weeks? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the goal, like, the smell is gonna always be there in an outdoor farm late in the summer. The goal is to sort of prevent it from becoming overbearing, I
Okay.
guess.
Okay, so the last meeting when we were told it was gonna be like a couple of weeks of smell, it's more like 6 weeks or more of marijuana smell.
Depending on, it could be, yes.
And
Yeah.
when you got your agreement signed, one of the agreements was that you were supposed to be growing low odor marijuana. So does the planning board or the board of health have a list of what plants you're actually planting to see if they are conforming with that?
That's all, that's all tracked in our software and it's all readily available.
Does the town have it available?
But we don't actually have a time here for additional public comment, and we have just taken 3 questions from you. Do you have
Okay, but-
anything else that you really wanna get out?
Does the planning board actually have a list of what plants these facilities are planting to see if they're in compliance with the agreement?
Can you just send us over a list of your varietals?
Absolutely, yeah,
Thank you.
sure.
And when will that list be available to the public?
Mark will have it in the office, so check with Mark.
In 5 days, 7 days?
When do you think you can have it?
By middle of next week,
Okay.
yeah.
One last quick one, because we do not have time set aside for public comment tonight, but I'll take
Okay,
one
forget it.
one quick one.
Good, no public comment, because I wanted to address some of the issues from the previous meeting. That's all I wanted to do, was to bring articles or, address issues that were brought up regarding
Yep.
the air quality and certain marijuana farms in Colorado as well as California that have undertaken the idea of trying to mitigate the smell surrounding the farm within residential areas. If that would be helpful, that's fine.
All right, well, thank you for.
All right.
We should listen to
Well, I guess, yeah, we can ask the board here. My personal preference would not be, because I think we pretty thoroughly litigated that last week, last month. Okay, so that would be a majority of the board not wanting to hear that information. So, I'm gonna move on to the next item on the agenda. All right, so moving down to the next one is Royal Sun. Now, Mr. Schmidt was not able to attend tonight because of family reasons. He did send a letter over to us, and the letter was sent over only just before the meeting, so I didn't have an opportunity to give it a very thorough read. He did testify significantly at the previous meeting where this was a topic of discussion, about about mitigation steps that he was planning on taking. However, unfortunately, it doesn't appear like a lot of that made it into this letter, which was really just all we were looking for here. So, I guess I'm gonna ask the board, what are your thoughts on this? In my individual opinion, I think if he just wrote down notes from what he had said last week, he would have been happily
A lot
moving
better.
on. Do we want to, what are the board's thoughts here?
May I say something?
Absolutely.
I think we could just ask him for clarification, based on the May meeting of his plan, as we have asked for the varieties that Bowie is growing, that he include that information as well, and that, you know, we would like him to let us, the boards know through the office staff, you know, when they expect some harvest times, and we will communicate if we get complaints as well, back to them. And maybe we can just generate a letter to encourage, a little bit more complete form.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, because ultimately he did testify appropriately to some reasonable measures for mitigation. You just didn't get him into the letter, and I know he was rushed because of personal reasons, so I think what Chair Hansgate is proposing is reasonable, that we just ask for a clarification on that. I don't think we need to schedule this again as a joint meeting. I
No,
think the
I
administrative
agree.
staff can handle this.
Do we have, phone contacts, direct numbers to get a hold of these folks if there is issues? Or do we have to go to letters?
We do for some of the staff, but not all of the staff there.
I just
at
think
both
that would
locations.
help, if people are complaining, we have a quick way to get a hold of them, that would probably help a lot.
Sometimes having things in writing is better though.
Well, we could do both, I think doing both is probably good, but email and letters, and a phone call.
Yeah, it's past the scope of what we have on for the agenda tonight, but I know the administrative staff are looking into more thoughtful ways to approaching this in the future, but the administrative staff, that's in their job description, and I trust them to get it right, so.
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? All right, so, Mark, can you
my time.
communicate the wishes of the board on this, or rather of the board and of our distinguished guests? And, we'll just get some clarification, as was described earlier in the meeting. And, as he had described previously. All right, anything else from the board? We'll move on to the next item, and if, anything else from our distinguished guests?
No, I think we've covered it. I do wanna hear about the, bathroom facility at Boylston,
Okay.
since we're in charge of septic issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It turns out, that was another, I mean, he had submitted that previously. I thought we were gonna take that up tonight, but the additional thing he submitted yesterday was actually a different request. I didn't realize it.
So ultimately, there's really a procedural issue that we need to look at and address first as a planning board. And unfortunately, I think that's a little hard for us to sort through without a representative of the business here. So I'm gonna ask the board, what its thoughts are on how we should handle this procedurally. Mr. Schmidt did make it to our last meeting, however, he was a half an hour late to his slot. Because of some confusion over the scheduling, it wasn't necessarily him just, it was a 6:30 meeting instead of a 7 o'clock meeting like this one and the previous one was, and he had some confusion about that, so he had missed his call for his item. So I don't believe we should hold that in particular against him. However, I do think we need to hear from somebody on this. The part that gives me pause is, at least from a planning board perspective, and I know it's a lot more in-depth from a Board of Health and from a building commissioner standpoint. From a planning board standpoint, this probably just is a minor engineering change. And it is something that we would normally grant as a minor engineering change, but it's really hard without somebody representing the permit holder here. There isn't anyone here representing the permit holder on this, is there? So what would what would the board like to do on this?
Should we continue it to another meeting, or?
Mark, do you think we have enough information to go forward on really either of these things brought up without having the permit holder here to talk about it? Or is there anything we can do to help you with it?
I think you would be best served by discussing it with him.
Okay. So that puts our next meeting at the 29th. Because the 22nd didn't work.
That's
The
right.
22nd was our next regular scheduled meeting, and we went to the following week.
Right.
Okay.
Which is also gonna be your next industrial tower
Well, it'll be a good one.
meeting.
It'll be a good meeting. So if that makes sense to everybody, I think, well, Mark is the expert on this, and if he thinks we should wait, I stand behind that, so.
I agree.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, if nobody feels differently, we'll continue that out to the 29th. And just for the record on it, yes, this is something that is normally a minor engineering change, we just need you to come in and talk to us about it, is ultimately the message that we're gonna be communicating. But as I said, that doesn't automatically approve all of that, because there's still Board of Health and Building Commissioner issues to work through. That's just not any of our business. All right, so I think that's everything we have on our agenda that you guys are gonna be interested in. You're welcome to stay for the other presentations, but we're gonna need space at the table.
Okay. Well,
So we're closing this.
Well, the Board of Health meeting never opened.
I know, but ours is still open now.
It was never a public hearing, it was just a meeting.
Pardon me.
Yep.
Right.
thank you.
All right.
All right, well, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. Distinguished guests.
I can,
Yeah.
I can send you the information we got from
Yeah.
David
Just
on that. It was a very
so-
preliminary
Yeah.
inquiry.
Okay.
He's just
No,
kind
we
of
were already
brainstorming.
present.
Sure.
The public meeting was not
Brainstorming is good.
officially closed last time. We just continued it.
It was not a statutory public meeting or public hearing.
I thought it was, and we had voted last time. Did we not vote last time that this was going to be continued as a public hearing?
We did not
No.
vote it as a
Or no?
public hearing.
Okay, I miss.
No,
missed
I
that.
appreciate you looking out for it.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, good night.
All right, so moving down the list is item 5, which is presentation by prospective buyer of conceptual site development plans for Marinelli gravel pit property off of Pitcherville Road.
Yeah, so, should we move over here? You okay?
Yeah, please come on up, identify yourself for the record, and let us know what you're thinking.
Alright, hi, my name is Amit. We are currently under contract, for that property. The reason that we asked, to meet you guys is we would like to do development on that site, but, saying that we would like to hear also what the town would like to see in that development. We can offer a couple of version of what we can do, and we have the engineering, Patrick here with me, that, you know, we can answer more question regarding exactly, the lot and everything. But it's a big lot, and we need to do something that will be good for the town. But saying that, we're working also in Fitchburg, by the way. We're doing two complex over there right now. One of them we're gonna finish in 2 or 3 months, and the other one we just broke ground this month. Another 16 units, duplexes. It's small, like a small neighborhood that we're doing. And that's really the issue that we asked for this meeting. First of all, we didn't came with a plan to show you exactly how many houses we're gonna do and stuff like that. We just wanna bring up all the things that are concerning us and to see what's your opinion about it. Okay?
So,
Okay, so if I could, I'd
Yes,
introduce
I will.
myself as well. Some of you might remember me, I was here with Bowie in the past,
Yes.
Patrick McCarty Engineering, based in Leominster. So we're the engineer for Amit's Fitchburg project, and he was actually in the office last week, following up on some last minute details for Fitchburg, and mentioned this project to me and asked if I would be available this evening. So in full disclosure to the board, I saw the site for the first time about an hour ago.
So you're ready to go?
So I'm ready to go. But, you know, as is the case with many old abandoned gravel pits that we have in this area, you know, Townsend and Lunenburg and Westminster all have similar cases where, you know, it was used for a specific purpose for a number of years, and once that purpose was done, you know, you're left with what you're left with, which is exposed slopes and washout areas and, you know, all kinds of challenging topography. So it's certainly a unique site where it's long and narrow. It has the natural habitat area on a portion of it. It's been mined. Amit unfortunately told me about the sad occurrence that happened there a few weeks ago with the ATV accident. So it sounds to me from an engineering perspective, it'd be great to get this designed and permitted with something that would stabilize the site and get it controlled, right, so it's not open to the ATV traffic, kind of clean up the previous use and make something that's beneficial to the town. And so I like Amit's approach, where we're not here with a plan saying, here's the 400 houses we're trying to build. You know, it's more, let's go talk to the board and get some input from them before the guys in my office start putting pen to paper. I guess the last challenge is really the frontage. There is a piece of town-owned land that's in between Pitcherville Road and our front property line, but there's an existing easement now, and there's also, I believe, some discussions with the town on potentially doing some kind of a swap for a portion of frontage so that we would connect right out to Pitcherville. So, obviously, you folks are all town members and I'm sure have thoughts on how this should be developed, and so we're here tonight to listen, and we'll be back at a future meeting with some concepts to discuss with you.
Hey, so, I guess keeping in context, this is absolutely by no means any kind of advisory opinion, we're just having a conversation and providing
Absolutely.
feedback.
Yep.
Um,
Non-binding.
I guess the.
No guaranteed approvals from whatever comes out. I understand all that part of it.
I guess probably the first jumping off place is the town lot that adjoins it, which is, I believe 57 Pitcherville Road. That property was taken by the town using affordable housing money, specifically for the purpose of either putting in affordable housing on that lot or putting in senior housing. There wasn't really a formal deal that was put together. It was done as a handshake deal of the chair of the previous chair of the planning board and the previous chair of the Affordable Housing Committee with the select board and the town administrator, because there was a diversion of affordable housing funds for doing that. And there was also a significant amount of affordable housing funds that were spent investigating potential contamination issues on that site. And they've since turned out to be not that big of a deal. There's just really a few truckloads of sand that got.
The shooting range.
Yeah, that need to come out of there, and that just needs to be documented, but it wasn't gonna be a huge deal in terms of
Which is awesome.
the kind of development that really, I think the sand pits themselves would end up in. So I think one of the things that would be most attractive, so I guess further in background, the planning board used to be the Affordable Housing Committee in town, and everybody who's currently sitting on the planning board, with the exception of our new associate member, were all on the board when it was the Affordable Housing Committee, and all had feelings that this was the appropriate place in town to try to do something like this, because there are some other town-owned lots where we've tried to do it, and because they're either too far off of the main roads or they're too far into neighborhoods or too isolated, they weren't really good locations to try to do anything. So this 57 Pitcherville lot is really our only good option to try to do something for senior housing. So if there is a way that can be incorporated in with what you're planning, or with some kind of land swap or something that was going on, that would certainly be meaningful to us. There's, well, I guess before that, any additional thoughts from the board? that so far?
What about the issues of the cleanup of the Marinelli lot, well, the debris that was supposedly trucked from Worcester and dumped out there years ago? Cause that's come up over the years too. When I first got on the board, I was with, one of the previous chairmans. We went out and took a tour of the property, and there's debris and concrete, quite a few piles out there that were left there.
We were just there, we didn't see anything like that.
I physically saw it, and I went out there, and over the years I've been in town, I've known
Yep.
about it. So I wanna bring it up now
Okay.
that
Yeah.
I'd like to
No,
have it looked at.
If it's concrete, it shouldn't be an issue.
Well, it was debris coming from, the Worcester Centrum, I think, when it did work there. I'm bringing back some memory here. I'd have to look it
Yeah.
up, but, it was dumped on the Marinelli pits.
Okay.
And there was that came up between Marinelli and our board a few times. So, I wanted to bring it up now and say something.
This is from 2017, it was a survey they had done. I don't know if it shows anything to that extent, but certainly, we would look into stuff like that.
Right.
Cause, his partners don't wanna purchase a liability.
Correct.
Good input though, especially with what's going on in Westminster with the dumping that's,
Really? I haven't heard about that.
are you joking?
No. I've been working so much, I haven't listened to anything.
They, there's hundreds of wells contaminated up by the golf course because of what was hauled into the
I'm sorry, I did hear
composting.
about
The
that.
PFAS,
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm not seeing anything that denotes like piles or anything like this. But,
You ever like
we
to
would look
connect up
into
together? I'll
that.
go out there with a show you where I recall what
Yeah.
it all was. Unless it got moved, I don't believe it did.
Yeah, I mean, going back 21 years ago now, when Vin Ritchie was your chairman, and I was your consultant when I worked at Rizzo Associates back
Right,
in
yep.
the day, we looked at affordable housing in town, and we did the whole math on the general land area minimum,
Mhm.
because Hubbardston doesn't have anywhere near the affordable housing
Right.
to satisfy 40B requirements. I remember going through that whole discussion back then when the planning board was the affordable housing committee. So that, something that could be beneficial, that you could get some, some units to count towards your inventory to
Sure.
help you with that.
The TA is online and is looking to be recognized. So,
The T.
town
Town
administrator.
administrator.
Oh, sorry.
It's online.
He's muted.
Hi guys, how are you? Sorry, after a few long days and getting married this past weekend, I had no more gas in the tank.
Congratulations.
So I am logging on from my cell phone at home. Amit, Mr. Engineer, I've worked with one of your employees before, so I'm familiar with your business. I have Justin's card in my office right now.
Oh, okay.
I ask that after you're done with this, that we can set up a time frame to discuss and have you come to the office. Maybe we bring Mark, our town planner, into the conversation as well to talk about what would fall under the guise of the select board versus planning board versus possibly a developmental role in what you're looking to do versus what the potential ideas of the town. I do have a little bit of leeway in talking more freely, yet more kind of confined than the planning board may, or the select board may be able to do during a open session. But I am wide open to talking to you about this and seeing if there is anything that from a municipal standpoint we could do to work together. And thank you for coming to the planning board tonight. I apologize, Mr. Chair, for taking so long speaking, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, that's
Yeah.
excellent.
That is also a good thing to note, and to note for the rest of the board. Thanks to the town meeting last night, Mark is actually going to be a town planner for us come July 1st, which I think also represents a good opportunity for you guys, because you can bounce some of these thoughts and some of these issues off him. He has a very good sense of where the board's at and a very good understanding of our rules. Francois?
So Chairperson, I would like to ask, Mr. Shilgi.
Yep.
Did I pronounce it correctly?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I have, and I'm sure that the rest of the board here has very little information on you and the entity that you represent.
Okay.
I would appreciate if you could formally introduce yourself and who the
No problem.
interests are that you are representing here this evening.
No problem. So we're three private investors that working in the area. Myself, I originally from Israel. I moved to the United States 9 years ago, doing construction all the past 5 years. I just moved to Massachusetts from Jersey. I was working in Jersey for a long time, and I'm living right now in Lunenburg. And in the past 8 months, I think, while we're doing the other 2 projects in Fitchburg. So me, my partner is Eyal, and we have a third partner is named Mark. We are the entity that the investor, developer that doing those projects, looking into those projects. We choose to work in the suburban area. You know, we're not going to work in middle of Boston on a high-rise building. We decide to work with the small towns. It's easier for us. It's a small project, but I personally like it. Basically, that's it.
What is the entity's name that you represent?
So basically, we have a company that it's called KSP Builders LLC.
KSP?
KSP.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, KSP.
P as in
Yeah,
Peter. Thank you.
Builders LLC, and it just, you know, the three of us, the 3 partners that we're working together on those deals. You know, once we get money involved, we have our investor or the banks that we bring to the deal that, you know, to create those deals that we can make that happen, because a project like that involves obviously a lot of money. And that's why we're here to see that your requirement and your interest is meeting our potential investment in the end of the day, because I'm doing this for living. So it's not like I'm volunteering to do that, obviously, and we just need to make sure that your requirement and your requests are getting heard, and we know what you guys want to do. So when I go to Patrick and ask him to draft something, it's not something that I'm gonna come here and, you know, get denied straight away, and I just spent X amount of money that I need to pay everybody to do the survey, do the test pit, taking off the materials from that shooting range, and all that.
You're fairly new to.
I would like to add something, please, so that I can.
No, I'm sorry, would you state your name, please?
Yes, my name is Eyal Price.
Yes, sir.
This is the P of KSP.
Okay, makes
It's not
makes
Peter,
sense.
it's Price. Your question is very important. Let me please. My English is not so good like Amit, but let me tell you a little bit of our experience. Okay. So first of all, we have the case. Klinger is our partner. He lives in Florida. He's a GC for 25 years, building a lot of apartment and building in Manhattan and Brooklyn, especially on the high end. We together did. I'm talking about the last 5 years. Convert a factory to 80 apartments in New Haven, convert 26 townhouses to 26 apartments near the university. We are doing now 28 units in a small town near Columbus named Marysville. We did the zoning, we're doing the development, we're building. We took, in Hebrew we say the white elephant, I don't know if it's in English as well. We took a factory over there in Fitchburg, in Frankfurt Street. It was empty for 20 years. We converted, I can show you pictures, to 18 apartments, beautiful apartments. We're already selling them during the pandemic and the coronavirus. We built 3 high-end houses in Florida, in a golf course. We sold each one more than $2.5 million. And we are doing now the 16 unit. We also have a huge lot, 29 acre in Leicester, that we had approved for 74, now it's 68. We're still talking with the city to the last approval because the water issue. over there. And I think there's a lot of singers, but it's not.
I appreciate this and I understand. The reason I'm asking is I mean, I see from a background perspective, you were in New York, you worked with BQM, right?
With BQM, yeah.
Real estate investment
Yes.
firm and so forth. And the experience that you had there, is there something that you can translate that you can bring into this area? The reason I'm asking is because it sounds like that's been your experience. You just gave me a little bit of your experience. We're trying to assess who you are because we have little to no information. It would be really helpful.
No, listen, everything is up front. We're not trying to, it's.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just trying to understand.
It's a different animal.
Because and that's why I'm saying, A, it's New England, you're working now in a very rural area.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to understand what you bring to the table.
So, we bring to the table our understanding of the local area, if the requirement and demand in the area. Like, if you're telling me like we talk about 40B, if I take that area and I build, I don't know, 60 homes, is there enough people to buy 60 homes over here? Or we prefer to build 30 homes and do a dog park and I know we were talking about a golf shooting range, stuff that will be making more sense to build in a place like that. In New York, you build, every square feet you build is for somebody to live.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's not the case.
Okay. You mentioned 40B, is that your intention?
No.
Not at all.
No.
It's not.
Okay, I
We are
just wanna
not
make
playing
sure.
this game.
No.
I understand that.
No.
I don't know why it's not. Anyhow, it's gonna be approved by you, so.
Well,
yeah.
we understand. I
It's
was
not,
just,
No, we don't
But
like
I
it.
will, I will answer different from,
Go ahead.
my partner on it, with my partner.
he's the S, you're the P. Go ahead.
The K is the.
We'll meet K at some point in time.
Yeah.
I don't wanna go into politics, and I don't want to go into politics, but we are coming from a country that, on the age of 18, you must go to the army for 3 years. So we born and raised in an environment that we supply, we either have excuse or results. We know to give results. I built 3 houses under the Corona time with no demand, no supply, no workers, and we came to the final line. Same in Fitchburg. The money that we put in the Excel before the Corona and the money that we paid during the Corona is a different Excel. But we came to the final line. We didn't come over here to play. We come to do something that's good for the town, first of all, and for us. We are not volunteer. We came here to make money. I'm saying it up front. But the land over there is so huge, so today we stood over there, I told him, you know what, this part, the 8, 9, I don't know to imagine in my eyes. I see it over here, so a nice park to the community facing to the forest. I don't need it. I don't need to develop the all 70 acre for houses. I understand the restriction that we have with the, we don't have sewer, so we are restricted with the number of the bedrooms that is limited to 90, so it cannot be 19 houses, it cannot be even 75, it need to be lowered. So we are trying to think about the situation that maybe we develop half of the land and half we're gonna make a park or a golf or both to the community, which is, by the way, it's for the community, but the neighbors enjoy it more than everyone, so it's also good for us.
Yeah.
Yes, it's part, okay.
Okay. I'm sure that the only place you've ever volunteered in your life was with the IDF. I appreciate your candidness my questions are more just to understand who you are, what you're bringing to the table, and I appreciate your candidness on this here. Thank you.
We can shoot you an email with all our resume, it's very impressive.
That would be appropriate, I think beneficial. Thank you.
Further questions from the board? So, I don't think anybody on the board wants to see those sand pits stay sand pits forever.
No.
there are some people in the town that feel that way. I don't think any of those people are on the board. So that's probably also something worth knowing.
Yep,
So are there?
gonna be another question from me is, you know, that was the other reason to coming here tonight, is if you guys said, no, we don't wanna see that developed, it's gonna be a difficult path for you guys, and we'd wanna know that up front.
Yeah, so I'll let everyone on the board speak individually on this. So as a individual and not as the chair, I absolutely wanna see those pits developed. This last fatality is the last fatality. It's not
That's
the
horrible.
first, there's been more.
Oh, really?
And the fact that
Years
those
ago, yeah.
those sand pits have just stayed the way that they are, and there's been a lot of not my problem. Well, in my mind, the buck starts here, so I would like to push our agenda on this and see something happen with these sand pits. That is important to my agenda. With that said, I have to get reelected as chair at our next meeting, so who knows? But it's land that's currently wasted. It's an attractive nuisance. People are literally dying there. Enough is enough, from my individual standpoint. And I don't have control or authority over what the town does with its parcel that adjoins it, but I hope the town comes to the table and talks turkey on that. How does the rest of the board feel?
I completely agree. I would love to see that developed and turned into something more than it is.
And we've been talking about doing this for years, and hopefully we can work into it for the seniors also, to make something available there for them through this whole process, working together. I think that's really important.
A question that I raise is are you aware that the town does not have sewer and public water?
Yes.
And any limitations that come as a result of this here are limitations that you need to overcome.
Yes.
So,
That's where we were going with the bedroom count, cause we don't wanna have to build a wastewater treatment plant, because that would just be a deal breaker. Not only from the initial cost to build it, but then to hire a certified operator to run it, it's not worth it. So we would do is, you know, either a large community septic system, if, you know, depending on how the layout works out.
Pitcherville Road is also a rural road, and the density of any population increase would affect neighborhood. I have heard from neighbors that they like a quiet neighborhood. That's certainly something to keep in mind. What we're saying here is it's a white page. And for all intents and purposes, it's for you to come back with a proposal that would not only be doable from a planning board perspective, but quite frankly, amenable to who your neighbors will be, because any kind of potential opposition that comes will probably come from them. And they will provide the feedback that is an important element for you to take into consideration, and the board will have to hear those out too.
So that's what I wanna ask, because you guys all the time mention like over 55 seniors that looking to place to live and stuff like that. So saying that, are you like, obviously when you say that, I'm thinking about ranches, you know, house that is only one level with no stairs and stuff like that, but also with kind of I don't wanna say kind of it's not an HOA, but it's a community that, you know, the road is taken care of during they have associate, they're taking care of the roads and the stuff, so they don't need to shovel the snow in the winter and stuff
The
like that.
association fees is what you're saying,
So-
would take
Yes.
care of things of that nature.
Yeah, is that what you like, when you say, I just wanna understand what you're saying when you're saying, you know, housing for seniors.
So I think the best way to respond to that is to talk about what the identified need has been and what we looked at as the Affordable Housing Committee previously and as the planning board, is that ultimately what drives our desire to have senior housing is that based upon some older data that we have, we believe we have a significant number of individuals who are overhoused in the community but still want to stay in the community. And the only available senior housing in Hubbardston has a 7-year waiting list. So there's no place for them to go if they want to stay in the community. the,
Affordability issue.
yeah, there's the underlying affordability issue. And then there's also that, those folks that are overhoused are also, not helping that housing cycle through for other people to move into the community. So if those folks could move into a place where they were happy, that they liked, that was more affordable, that allowed them to no longer be cash poor and land rich. There are folks that very much would like to do that, and they would open up other avenues to have affordable housing stock in town. So that was really the former chair's really big. Yeah, those were the points that she drove home on why senior housing was so important for us. So the form that takes, I think, can be different as long as it's trying to address some of those needs. I don't think anybody is suggesting a 55, what kind of the classic 55 plus community. I think we're looking at something that addressed those specific needs, and it might be something that is more organizational and maybe does become involved with the town housing authority, maybe those kinds of things happen, but I think those are discussions that need to kind of happen with Nate and Mark as our town planner, and figure out what can commercially make sense and what can make sense for the town for scratching those needs.
Okay.
Excuse me, the project that you spoke about is on the road on the east side between the lakes, that you're going over there, you have lake on two sides?
Madison Way. He's talking about Madison Way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That used to be 55 plus. I think they opened it up though.
yeah, that was a 55 plus community. I was, the
Wilson's
one that's the
project.
7-year waiting list is,
Hub House Apartments.
yeah,
It's on Old Princeton Road,
Yeah.
cut off.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Old Front?
The Hub House Apartments. Yeah.
the Hubbardson House Apartments, yeah.
How big, what is the size that the houses that people expect to see?
Well, can you talk a little bit about, I've never actually been to Hubbardson House, actually.
The Hub House Apartments is it's an
It's
apartment
small.
building. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
The
almost,
small apartments.
I don't want to say nursing home, but assisted living facility. So it's more
It was
a
designed
larger
many,
building
many
with
years
multiple
ago.
1-bedroom apartments.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be
No,
what we're
that's-
looking for.
No. But it's just an example of the inventory that exists in our community from an affordable housing perspective. The biggest issue that we have here is and I think that's one of the reasons that we are presenting this here. We know you're not a charitable organization, and we understand that you're a for-profit organization, but also keep in mind that I don't know how to say it in any other way, is for you to keep an interest, not only for the community, but for the planning board, et cetera, taking into consideration the needs that a community such as ours has when it comes to affordable housing and how to potentially blend that in. I'm not saying it has to be that, but blending it might be something that might be very instrumental. Our affordable housing inventory here in the community is does not reach the state quota requirements. And so as a result of that, we as a planning board have looked even at the lot that is at Pitcherville Road as a potential place where affordable housing could be in the future developed. Or we're not saying that we have a plan yet, but it's certainly something that has been laid out as something. The fact that you're coming into the picture at this point in time, I don't know if the two things can be married or not. But just something to keep in mind.
Am I misremembering that Places Associates put together an initial assessment and had some recommendations for 57 that?
Yeah, I think
guess
they
you
did,
did.
not, you said
Yeah.
that, yeah.
This was,
If-
Bill put that together some time ago.
Well, as you know, we've had a tremendous amount of turnover in the office, so if we can find that, and I'll also look through my email. It gives some recommendations and also gives you some insight on what the town was thinking about doing with that lot. Because we looked at, for 57, we looked at everything ranging from developing it ourselves, turning it over to a developer, doing a friendly 40B, all kinds of different options for it, and I think that'll give you a pretty good insight about what we're trying to get out of it originally.
Quickly switching hats, if I put on my Habitat for Humanity hat, I was on the board for 10 years.
Yeah.
If the town has a lot, I think Hubbardson now in the North Central affiliate service territory, so if the town has a lot that they're looking to do affordable housing, they should talk to Habitat.
We did that.
We just did one
Oh,
last
good.
year.
We did that, about 3, 4 years ago.
Oh, I've been off the board for about a year and 4 months,
No, it
although
was
I
like
think
2
they're
years
dragging me
ago.
back on.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
good.
great, yeah.
I got a letter from them today to see if I'll donate again.
Yeah, they won't stop it, yeah.
No,
they
they
won't.
never do, but that's, I mean, and the need is great, but yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, we increased our inventory by 1, at least it was an inventory
That's
by
right.
1
Yeah.
increase. It shouldn't happen for years, it was stagnant.
Right.
And if anything, I would say Alice Livedall's ability to focus on this area has prompted us as a planning board to make sure that we're gonna keep going on this here. And again, this is why I'm looking at you gentlemen, and again, I'm not saying that this is your goal. I'm just simply saying, think about it, how you can integrate this here. Or I should say blend it potentially in, and see if there's a way that it makes sense and does not disenfranchise the community if you don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna take a slightly different
Please go.
perspective.
You're the
Because
attorney here.
That is totally true with the parcel you are contracting to buy.
Yeah.
However, we do own 57 Pitcherville Road, and from that standpoint, we can say a little more forcefully what we're looking for from it.
Assuming that that's in the
Yes.
picture, right?
Yeah, assuming that does not, well, we can say a little more forcefully what our desires are for that parcel that we as a town own, and hope that we can find a way for all of these things to all coexist in a way that makes sense for you from a business standpoint.
Mhm.
So, I think we can be a little more forceful about the town-owned land.
Yes.
With that said though, is that the kind of feedback you were
Yeah.
looking for? Do
Yeah,
you have any other
and
questions?
again, I think our next step would be to take Nate up on his offer to meet with him and Mark.
And Mark, yeah.
Have a discussion, and then I would basically come out of that with a concept plan that we could all start discussing before we dive deep into drainage calcs and
Makes
pipe
sense.
sizing and all that fun stuff.
Yep, and
can do
I'm
that
sure
in
Mark
5
will address
minutes.
some of you, but I believe the northern edge of the property, it goes into the wellhead protection zone for Fitchburg.
Oh, the
for
whole- the
protection.
whole property's
Oh,
on
the
the
whole
wellhead
is in the
protection
off,
area.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some issues with that I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
So, all
The
right.
good news is a lot of these old gravel pits, they would mine right down to seasonal high groundwater and not leave you anything left for a septic, so fortunately, we have room for that, so,
That's key.
yeah, key. The Townsend one, they didn't, right down.
The
Really?
one
Yeah.
across the street went below the water line.
The parcel right next to you is
Oh, really?
all the way down to groundwater.
Yeah.
The parcel on the west.
Okay,
All right, so
Great.
thank you very much for
thank you all for your
coming.
time,
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.
much.
Yeah,
Side of the
thank you for
road.
coming in and engaging us.
The one on the west.
What's the name over there?
They doing it quickly.
Yeah, Mark can help you out with any information as well, man.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, so we're gonna skip the minutes approval, just because, they only just became ready. I haven't had a chance to look at them yet myself, so we're gonna go past that. So matters not reasonably anticipated by chair.
Good night.
Thank you.
I guess a couple quick MRPC updates, and I think Francois, did you have something?
Well, I had sent something to the two of you, via email. You may not have received it, and I don't know if it's appropriate for a matter that
I just saw it.
reasonably,
I just saw it
anticipated by
briefly.
the chair.
I think we should have the office and Duffy take a look at that for a little bit, and then
That's
put it
fine.
on our next agenda.
And that's totally okay.
So, for other matters, we actually just got a response back from Tyler from MRPC with a draft copy of the agricultural bylaws, which are gonna be going out to the EDC and then the AAC, because we need more letters to talk about things. And hopefully, we'll be getting close to having something that could be presented for a fall meeting if there is one, but maybe there won't be. I mean, it's only a $69,000 difference, but we'll see. And then, there's an MRPC meeting tomorrow night. I will likely be voted onto the executive committee. I've been nominated for it, but that's the vote, so we'll see what that does. That should help us further deepen our relationship with MRPC. Should be very good for the town in the long run.
Beneficial.
What's that?
It's most likely gonna be beneficial.
Yeah, it should be, as the commission ultimately decides who gets certain grants, so being in a leadership position on the commission, I think will be helpful for us. Which will also be a good reason to vote for me again as chair next meeting. But next meeting is also our organizational meeting, because it will be after the election. So we will be going through seats on the board. We will need to vote for a new chair. And we also have a whole slew of things that board members serve for as
Need to be reassigned.
yeah, that need to be reassigned. Many of them are actually dictated by the charter and the bylaws. So it's not optional for us to send people to, we have to send people. We also have a variety of roles that we have to fulfill with regional organizations, like RPC with the commission and with JATC, the transportation one. And there's another one too that they're trying to get going again. But we'll have to go through and we'll look at all of that stuff the next meeting. I'll make sure I send it out ahead of time so people can think about what they might be interested in. And if anybody is not interested in carrying on anything they're currently doing, historically, we do allow associate members to also fill in those roles. So Peter, if you were interested, please throw your name in at the next meeting. There are a lot of interesting ways to help out with some of the boards, committees, and regional organizations, because we do a lot more than just the stuff that we do at the table. So with that said, anybody have anything else? All right, well, how about a motion?
I'll make that motion, sir, to adjourn.
Second the motion.
Here in a first and a second, it is not debatable. Calling a vote.
Shall your aye?
Woman's eye.
Jack, aye.
And aye.
And the chair is aye. We are adjourned.
Good luck, guys.